What's up guys, Batman TST here, and today we are going to start our 5-part series on the Halo story so far. This will only include the main series of the franchise, so let's jump in and start at the beginning with Halo Combat Evolved, the game that started it all. Following the fall of Reach, the Pillar of Autumn made its escape by jumping into slipspace, making what appeared to be a blind jump. However, the artificial intelligence known as Cortana secretly used coordinates that she had found through Forerunner relics. This led the Pillar of Autumn to arrive at Halo on September 19th, 2552. They were followed by the Covenant, led by Supreme Commander Thel 'Vadamee in his flagship Seeker of Truth. Captain Jacob Keyes had the ship go to Combat Alert Alpha and had the Master Chief woken up from cryosleep and wanted to see him on the bridge. Once there, Captain Keyes informed the Master Chief that he was enacting the Cole Protocol to protect the location of Earth from the Covenant. He gave Cortana to the Chief to protect her and gave the order for everyone to evacuate. He, meanwhile, was planning on crash landing the Pillar of Autumn on the mysterious ring. Covenant started boarding the ship, and Master Chief fought his way to an escape pod. The pod crashes on an alien ring, with Chief being the only survivor. After evading Covenant search parties, Cortana and Chief encounter a group of surviving Marines. After helping to defend them against waves of enemies, they see other escape pods racing down to the surface of the ring. They decide to track down the pods and round up any survivors to give the UNSC a fighting chance for survival. After they completed their task, Cortana informs Master Chief that she's found the location of Captain Keyes, and that he's being held prisoner by the Covenant aboard their ship, the Truth and Reconciliation. The Spartan and a group of Marines fight their way on the ground to a gravity lift which takes them up into the belly of the alien vessel. Fighting their way through many Covenant, the Master Chief found the brig where the captain and other soldiers were being held. Captain Keyes informs Master Chief that while he was being held prisoner, he overheard them calling the ring world Halo. Cortana finds out that the Covenant believe this to be a religious relic that can be used as a weapon with unbelievable power, and that the Covenant is looking for a control room. The captain tells Master Chief and Cortana that their new mission is to beat the Covenant to the control room. Together with the captain, they escape the ship by stealing a Covenant dropship. Cortana tells Chief and the others that there's a map room on this island that the Covenant calls a silent cartographer, and that'll show them the location of the control room. The Master Chief and a group of Marines storm the beach fighting off the Covenant. After capturing the beach, Foehammer drops off a warthog for them. The Master Chief drives around the island until they find a structure inside a cliff wall. Fighting their way inside, they find a Covenant force already there. Master Chief makes his way to the bottom of the structure, and there they find the map room and discover the location of Halo's control room. They try to inform the captain, but he isn't responding. Nevertheless, Chief and Cortana go to the snowy terrain of what appears to be a temple that houses the room they're looking for. As they continue their assault on the control room, they fight against a large Covenant presence. Once inside the control room, the Master Chief plugs Cortana into the terminal, and she accesses information about Halo and immediately tells Chief to go stop Captain Keyes from opening the weapons cache he's looking for, telling him there's no time to explain. The Master Chief leaves Cortana there and gets dropped off in a jungle where the last transmission from the captain was made 12 hours ago. After trudging through the swamp and fighting some Covenant, he makes his way to a structure and ventures his way in. He finds a room with one soldier who was pointing his gun at the Master Chief and was mumbling nonsense. Leaving him, the Spartan moves down the corridor and opens another door where a dead Marine falls into his arms. The Chief lays him down and picks up a nearby UNSC helmet from a fallen soldier. He takes out the camera's memory chip and slots it into the device inside his helmet. His HUD filled up with the video footage from Corporal Jenkins' cam. After fast-forwarding, he got to the moment where they were in the same room John was in now. In the video, he could see both Sergeant Johnson and Captain Keyes. Soon they were surrounded by unknown small pod-like creatures who started to attack them. Jenkins' camera quickly goes to black. After Master Chief turns the video off, he soon comes upon the same creatures who attacked the others. Fighting his way, he starts coming across bigger forms of the unknown creatures who are more formidable. The Spartan fights his way out of the structure and makes his way to a nearby tower after hearing to head there for pickup. Once he gets there, he comes across a metallic floating spherical object. It tells him that he is 343 Guilty Spark and the monitor of Installation 04. And that someone has released the flood, and he requires a Spartan's assistance, and he teleports both of them out of the forest. When they reappear, they're now inside of a large structure, different than the ones Master Chief had been in before. The monitor tells him that they are there to retrieve the index from the library so that they can activate Halo's defenses and stop the flood. After fighting through many waves of the Flood, the Master Chief is able to reach the index and retrieve it, but just as he grabs it, 343 Guilty Spark takes it due to protocol for safekeeping. Together they make their way back to the control room, and once there, the Monitor gives back the index to the Chief and tells him to insert it into the console. As he does so, Cortana shows up out of the console and informs the Chief that Halo is not a weapon that kills the Flood, but any sentient species to starve the Flood. Cortana absorbs the index, frustrating the Monitor, who insists that Halo needs to be activated per protocol. Master Chief pulls Cortana out of the console in time for the Monitor to send his Sentinels to attack them. After fighting their way out of the control room, Cortana tells John that they must destroy Halo using the Pillar of Autumn's fusion reactor. But first they have to find out where the UNSC ship crashed. In the meantime, they devise to slow the Monitor down by damaging 3 pulse generators. After doing so, they know that they will need Captain Key's authorization, so Cortana teleports them to the Truth and Reconciliation to find him. The ship has been overrun with Flood, and the Covenant is desperately trying to fight them off. Once Chief gets there, Cortana tells him that the Captain is alive, and that she has a log on his signal. As the pair make their way through the battlefield, Keyes tries telling them to leave him. John gets to the bridge to find that Captain Keyes has now been assimilated into a Flood. Knowing that they need the Captain's neural implant, Chief punches through his skull, pulled out the implant, and after shaking off the Flood biomass, inserts it in his helmet. The two make their escape using a Banshee in the hangar. They are barely able to make it to the Pillar of Autumn in it. Now back on the UNSC vessel, they begin fighting through waves of Covenant, Flood, and the Monitor Sentinels. They finally make it to the bridge to initiate an overload of the ship's fusion engines. After starting the self-destruct sequence, the familiar voice of the Monitor can be heard. He's in engineering and aborts the sequence. Chief asks how much firepower it would take to crack the engine shields. She mentions a well-placed grenade, and the new plan is in place. The Sentinels try to kill them on the bridge, but they make it out and work their way down to engineering. Cortana talks the Spartan through how to open the exhaust couplings so they can try detonating the fusion reactors. After destroying 4 of them, Cortana tells them that the ship's engines have gone critical and they only have 15 minutes to get off the ship. Racing against the clock, they get in a Warthog and they work their way to a longsword. The Warthog only gets them so far, so the Spartan has to run the rest of the way on foot, surrounded by a horde of the Flood. They make it to the longsword and he takes off. After making it into space, the Master Chief looks at the ring in time to see the ring explode. John asks Cortana if anyone else made it, and Cortana tells him that they were the only survivors. Cortana says that they did what they had to for Earth, that Halo is finished. The Master Chief takes off his helmet and tells her that he thinks they're just getting started. And that ends our first part of a 5-part series. Please join us on our next episode as we cover the story of Halo 2. From all of us at TST Gaming, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And until next time, just play.